Welcome back to the Double V Sports Talk, Athletes Unscripted. I'm your host, Brian Volz. My brother and co host, Matthew Volz, is unable to be with us today, but we have a very special guest on the show. He's a North Greenville University alum and former all conference football player, Kwame Livingston. In this episode, we talk about NFL free agency moves, Kwame's football and recruiting journey at North Myrtle Beach High School in Little River, South Carolina, and how your off the field mental health can affect your on the field performance. Please be patient with us as early on in the interview, we dealt with some minor technical difficulty before finally getting on our feet and having a true conversation. That was recorded. But, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Kwame Livingston. Kwame, thanks for being here today. Man, it's been too long. It's been a while since we've had a chance to actually sit down and have a conversation like this. I mean, I think last time that we actually were able to sit down and have a face to face was probably my office right before I left. So Kwame, I want to kind of dive in. We kind of start off these deals with a little sports talk, right? So the sports talk for today is going to be a little bit about free agency because there's just been so much going on. Talking about quarterbacks. I don't think Caleb Williams is the answer. We talked about in our last episode with Chauncey a little bit about the quarterback prospects that were coming up into the NFL draft, and I think we pretty much all agreed. Well, I shouldn't say that. I agreed with myself that Caleb Williams, in my mind, is not the answer. We talked a little bit about how we feel like he kind of took a little bit of a back seat this year and kind of kicked it into cruise control, tried not screwing it up, but at the same time, anybody that can kick it into cruise control when they're playing a competitive sport is not somebody I want leading my team. It's not somebody I want to build my franchise around. Like it just if you just kick it into cruise control, like I don't care if you're playing pickup basketball. I'm not kicking it into cruise control. I'm getting down the post. I'm going to try to throw you to the ground. I'm fighting for rebounds. I'm throwing elbows. But that's just who I am. I'm going to do whatever I can to win. And those are the kind of guys that I want to build a team around. And I think both Caleb Williams and Drake May both kind of kicked it a little bit into cruise control this year. I think he's probably the second best quarterback overall behind Jalen Daniels. I think Jalen Daniels is the best quarterback in the NFL, or in the draft right now.
No matter what type of adversity that they do face, Jaden Daniels usually always leads them out of it. And he always has something up his sleeve. Oh man, it's exciting to watch Jaden Daniels. I can't wait to see how he translates his game into the pro level.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun to see. Continuing on with free agency.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about Aaron Rodgers getting a massive weapon to join him in the Jets and Mike Williams?
Here comes New York. That's all I got. Here comes New York.
Man.
I think him having a legit target in Mike Williams, oh man, that could cause a lot of problems. That could cause a lot of problems in the AFC, and I believe that that'll shake it up. And I believe that the Jets will have a really good year. I honestly think that if Aaron Rodgers was healthy last year, they would have had a really great year.
Good chance.
I do believe that. And it's a shame that we couldn't see it last year, but boy, let me tell you, I think the Jets this year have the potential to win their division, no doubt. And they have a potential to be top 3 teams in the AFC. And
especially since the Bills lost, half of their squad because they couldn't afford them anymore. The Patriots are rebuilding, and the Dolphins, they made a big push last year, but they've also lost a lot of key pieces. Mm-hmm. And so, they lost their guard to the Panthers. Their center right now is coming off of an ACL tear. He's still in free agency market. They lost Howard, their corner. Or he's in free agency, or they let him go. No, it wasn't Howard. It was it Ramsey? Or Xavier Howard?
Oh, Xavier Howard.
Yeah, so they let him go to free agency. So who knows what they're going to come out with this year? You know,
Yeah.
but we're talking about big Chargers wide receivers leaving, right? So they lost Mike Williams and traded away Keenan Allen to the Bears. So now you've got this stacked Bears squad, right? With
Mhm.
DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Swift back there, running back, and then I guess we can assume that even though I disagree with it, with the choice, we can assume that it's going to be Caleb Williams back there at quarterback. Are the Bears going to be able to do anything this year?
I will say it really depends on who they have back there at quarterback.
Well, let's assume
If
that it's Caleb Williams.
if it's Caleb Williams, if it's Caleb Williams, I feel like he will have a good rookie season. I don't think he will translate over time well. Um, I feel like when Caleb Williams is on, when he's on and he's playing the game that we saw him play last year and not this year in college football,
Hmm.
I feel like he's one of the best quarterbacks that I've ever seen. But just like you said, when he kicked it in the cruise mode, this season, just trying not to mess everything up, it affected his gameplay, and it affected how I looked at him. It affected how a lot of people looked at him because why are you not competing to the best of your ability every single game? Snap, in between snaps, snap in and snap out. Why aren't you competing? Why are you scared to mess things up? If you go out there and you play to the best of your ability, no one's going to think different about you. You're putting everything out there. He didn't leave everything on the field. He didn't. And that was game in and game out. He didn't leave everything on the field. He still performed. He performed well,
Hmm.
but it wasn't the same Caleb Williams that we saw last year dominating everybody. Dominating.
I agree.
Wasn't the
He
same.
he looked above average is
Yeah.
is probably and that's fine, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not the no-brainer number one pick overall in the NFL draft for above average. Like, you're looking to build a franchise around. You're looking to take him to the next level. The other thing is the success rate of quarterbacks that come in and start game one as a rookie is not very high.
Um,
When you look at Patrick Mahomes, you look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at Tom Brady, you know, you look at Steve Young, and I could probably go back and find a bigger list of people, but even Ben Roethlisberger didn't start game one. He ended up starting his rookie season. But in recent time, I can probably only think of three quarterbacks that were picked number one overall that started their rookie year that ended up doing something, and none of them did it their rookie year. It took years to develop. You look at Peyton Manning, where he had to come in. He broke the record for most interceptions thrown by a rookie, and it took him 5 seasons to finally start clicking. You look at
mhm,
Cam Newton, came in, yeah, he lit the world on fire with the stats. Everybody wants to talk about how he threw 400 yards, but he also threw the ball 50 times.
mhm,
And he was throwing the ball 50 times and he was running at 20. I mean, of course you're going to put up big stats when you're doing that. And you saw it took him 4 years to put together a season, and then ended up going on to be MVP. John Elway, same thing when he came in the league, took him some time to be able to build and figure it out. But now there's so much pressure on these young kids coming in to be the guy right now that oftentimes if they don't succeed early, then the chance is taken away.
mhm,
You look at Trey Lance. Expectations were big. Came in, started as a rookie. Things weren't ready for him. But when you look at even Patrick Mahomes, right? Came in, had Alex Smith to be able to sit under. Got to
mhm,
play a little bit in a couple games when things got out of hand. So he had a year to be able to learn, a year to transition. But it's also part of the generation that we're in where people don't want to sit. I'm coming in here to play right now,
mhm.
and the idea of taking a step back to learn and observe and to figure out how it goes is completely undervalued. And look, I get it. You got to be confident being being a ball player, right? Especially a college ball player going to the NFL. You got to be confident in yourself. And so you've got to believe that, hey, I'm coming in, I'm going to be the guy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And that's great. But at a certain point, you also got to be humble enough to be able to look at it and be like, this is completely different. This is unlike anything I've ever experienced. Playing in the Pac-12 is not like playing in the NFL,
Yeah.
you know. So, I wish them all the best. I don't try to wish ill on anybody from a sporting standpoint, and like to see everybody succeed. Obviously, I want to see my Panthers win, but they're kind of throwing themselves down the toilet. But um, speaking of the Panthers, I want to talk about two moves that other teams in the NFC South have made. I don't want to talk about the Panthers. That'll just get me fired up. But let's start off by talking about somebody that's going to be chasing Bryce Young all over the place.
Oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm so
And
happy about the move. Oh,
and Chase Young joining Cameron Jordan and Peyton Turner on that New Orleans Saints line.
that. Oh my gosh, when I saw that move, I cried in joy. I cried in. I was like, this is what needed to happen for this defense to kind of just light up a little bit, you know? Oh man, I
I
was
want.
so excited.
I wonder what your boy Moneybag Rod is thinking about this whole move.
Oh, he was. I have to him about it. Uh, oh, we haven't talked since last week. Oh, I gotta talk to
But
him.
Dennis Allen's got to be fired up about that. Now granted it's a 1 year deal. It's basically 1 year, 13 million, fully guaranteed. So I hope he doesn't take a back seat and
Mhm.
and just kind of cruise it out, knowing that he's already got the money in the bag. I don't know if they have any kind of incentives going on it, any kind of sacks be able to go through, but it's big for him. That's for sure. Yeah.
The only reason I can't see him taking a back seat is because he went from he went from college standout to first couple seasons he stood out on the Redskins and he was the talk. He got traded to the 49ers or went to the 49ers and he was in the shadow of Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa. He was in that shadow. You didn't hear a whole lot about him. He still made plays here and there, but all eyes were on Nick Bosa and everybody else. He didn't make a whole lot of noise. Him coming into New Orleans and playing across the line from a veteran like Cam Jordan, who's been doing this for a while and he's constantly been a force every year. I think he tries to take that mantle. I think he realizes that he has to make some noise right now. He has 1 year to do it. I think that's what this 1 year deal is. I think this 1 year deal is to see if he can kick back into that gear and he can get back to where he was those first couple seasons where he was making all the noise on that defensive line. I think that's what this is, opportunity for him to get back to where
I think part of
I,
the other thing. What's that?
I really hope it is. I really hope.
Yeah, I think part of it is also, he was traded to the 49ers mid-year, and so they're already rolling. They've already got everything installed. He's playing catch up the whole time. So now he gets the call. He's getting lined up. He's trying to think about his job. He's trying to think about his scouting report. He's trying to think about all the different reactions that can happen. If they do this, if they do that. If am I a box guy? Am I a spill guy? Um, whatever it may be, thousand different things that can go into it. Um, and trying to play fast. And as well as anybody, the brain slows the feet down. If I'm
Yep.
thinking all the time and I'm trying to figure out what's going on, then I can't play at my full potential. But after I've been in the system for a while and it becomes second nature, and now all of a sudden that call comes in and I don't even have to think about what I'm doing. All I'm doing is thinking about them and how trying to figure out what they're about to do because I already know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I know better than the back of my hand. And so now Chase Young is actually going to have a full offseason with a team, be able to have OTAs, be able to have the fall camp, going to be able to have a preseason. And like you said, the experience that Cam Jordan brings is invaluable. And you can already see what he's been able to do with the younger guys underneath him. Uh, you even look at what Trey Hendricks did before he left for the Bengals,
Mhm.
and what he was able to learn, how Peyton Turner's really been able to turn it on since he was drafted, and I think there's a lot of upside to him getting under somebody like that and being able to pick up a lot of experience. Um, but the last thing that I kind of want to ask you about is what are your thoughts on the Brian Burns trade to the Bills? Or sorry, to the Giants.
I think that hurt the Panthers a lot. Um,
Yeah, sure did.
that that defense took a hit. um, Honestly, kudos to New York. They added a big time pass rusher, and that's going to help. That's going to help. Kelvon, is it Kelvon Thibodeau?
Hmm.
It's going to help a lot. It's going to help him a lot. That's going to take a lot of pressure off of him and that defensive front. And you're adding, you're adding all pro defensive player to that roster, and you're just making that defensive line heck of a lot scarier and a lot harder to deal with. Good move for the Giants, bad move for the Panthers is about all I can really say about that.
Like, just pay
I,
the man already.
I defense though. I hate it for the Panthers defense because he was a huge part. He was a huge part.
No,
You know,
I agree one
he's one.
thousand percent.
He's one of those people you had to game plan for. Like you had to have an answer for.
Yep.
It's gonna hurt.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Even though they had one of the worst offenses in the league, they had still one of the best defenses in the league. And both of us being defensive guys, I would rather score 7 and win the game than score 40 and lose the game.
Yeah.
So they wanted the money to be able to go pick up some offensive weapons, and that they have. But I am concerned about the defensive side of things. They lost their only pass rusher. They've lost their best corner. Um, it's just be God. I hope they do something. But let's get into talking about you. Panthers just depressed me. Let's talk about you. um, so like we said, out of Little River, North Myrtle Beach High School. While you were there, you were part of the North South All Star game, right? And you were also a first team All State performer and was named All Region twice while in high school. So, kind of want to start off. Tell us a little bit about how you got into football and that experience and playing up through, and then kind of talk to us a little bit about your high school years and then how that went into recruiting and how your recruiting process was to end up leading you to North Greenville.
Okay. Getting into football, honestly, I got into football at a really young age. I started off flag football with my dad and one of my uncles. My uncle was coaching a team in the local rec center. Um, I got involved. I was a very small kid growing up. I started off playing receiver. Uh, couldn't believe that now, but I started off receiver. I was a little skinny kid back then. Played fat flag football. First season of flag football, we went undefeated. It was great. You know, building off of that, I think 2 years later I started playing tackle football, and after that it kind of just fell in love with it. Uh, Going up into middle school, football was a really big part of my life. I did have a situation in my eighth grade year where I had to be removed from the football team, but I was a part of a the first undefeated season in school history. It was great. Um,
So what caused that, and what kind of experience happened there, and what'd you learn from it, and
uh,
how that changed things for you?
Honestly, there was a point in my eighth grade year where I struggled with my grades, and I wasn't able to keep up my end of the deal. And even though my coach wasn't going to pull me off that team, but my parents my parents pulled me off. And I do thank them for situations and times like those where there's a deal, there's a contract, there's a deal. I have to hold up my end, and they have to hold up their end, or you know what I mean. And my parents weren't my parents were not going to let that slide. They weren't going to let that slide. I didn't hold on my end of the deal in the classroom, so I shouldn't be able to play football out there. I shouldn't be able to be rewarded to go play the game that I want to play. And they pulled me off that team real quick. Did not feel a bit of bad about it. That was the whole deal, and I thanked them for that. Taking that experience. Later on in life, sit here and I wonder, just little things like that, shape the type of people we become. And them taking me off that team and disciplining me, this is what happens when you don't hold up your end of the deal. Look at what they did. They went undefeated without me. You know, it was like an eye opening experience. Like it was almost like um it was almost like a coach real life telling you that you're replaceable. Well, you are. You see what happened when you left. We didn't need you. We wanted you. We promised we wanted you, but we didn't need you. And that kind of just opened my eyes. Like, okay, I need to start holding up my end of the deal. I need to lock in the classroom. I need to stay focused on the things that really matter. And although football didn't matter, the school is what led me to football. School is what's going to get me football. That's how I stay playing football, is to stay in school and stay locked in.
100%
Um,
student athlete. I got a ton of respect for your parents for being able to do that, because that's a lesson that you much rather want to learn as an eighth grader than you do as a senior, when you realize that you can't go play football anywhere because you don't have good enough grades. And they let you know very early that school is your job and football is a privilege. And something that we talked about in our meeting room on a regular basis. Football can be taken away for a million different reasons. And when it comes to, how many times have you heard me say that?
yeah, every day almost.
Right? And it's because I don't want I don't want people, especially I didn't want us, to forget about the kind of privilege that we had to be able to go do it. How many people do you know dream of going to go play college football, regardless of what the level is?
Mhm.
And it's a privilege. I mean, that's exactly what it is. You don't have to go do it, regardless of how society has kind of twisted it a little bit to make them think that it's a professional athlete. Even from there, like, when we quit being grateful for things and we quit appreciating it, then we quit putting in the true work that it deserves, and we don't give it justice, and we don't give others around us that are trying to allow us to succeed, don't give them the justice for the help that they instill in us along. So, ton of respect for your parents for being able to see that and understand that even though it's going to hurt you now, you're going to be able to grow from it and learn from it and be able to move on from there. I mean, maybe if
Mhm.
that doesn't happen, you don't walk away with a degree.
Very well true. But you also know just as well as I do. I went through the same experience. My sophomore year,
In
or my
college,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. y'all went through the similar
But
situation.
it was the same deal. They told you, hey, you're not holding your end up on the end of the contract. And the same
But
deal happened when you came and talked to the head ball coach. He's like, look, we have a contract. Your scholarship is a contract. It's an agreement. You're not holding up your end of the deal of it.
this time,
And
my parents didn't have to hold up that end of the deal. He held up. Coach held up his end of the deal. He
absolutely,
said,
but your parents still jumped in and were just like, look, you figure this out.
"Yeah, they did. They did put it on me to figure it out. They did 100%." And
You
to
know,
be honest with you, I didn't know what to. I didn't know what to
ton of respect to him once again, because a lot of people, especially a lot of kids within your generation and younger, first thing that happens if something like that happens is all of a sudden the parents calling up and they're like, "Oh, how you doing this to my baby boy?" Like it's just like, no,
do.
like no,
Nah,
your parents treat you like a grown man. Hey,
my parents' first reaction. My parents' reaction whenever they found out, because I'm not gonna lie, they found out. Their first reaction looked at me and said, "You better start applying for loans because we're not helping you." I was like, "Ooh, oh man, that was the toughest winter break I've ever had in all 4 years of my college career. It was awful. That was stressful, and you know how stressful it was because I think I contacted you every day, multiple times a day,
yeah, we were
just at
probably yeah, I think we were on the phone about every single day.
every single day, like uh, but without that type of experience, I don't think I could have grown into the person I was today. Um, Being in that situation taught me to really take into account, really take hold myself accountable. That taught me to hold myself accountable and to it taught me the things that I need to focus on, the important things that I need to focus on because you know how close we were in college. I dealt with a lot. I dealt with a lot of things. I had a lot of different things going on at all different times, but none of that stuff was important. You know, I chose to let it be important. Um, the only things that really mattered in that moment in time was my school work and football. And those are the two things that, you know, helped me move forward in life. Those are two things that, you know, got my mind off of things. That was my getaway, my home, honestly. And those are things that kept me going. All the extra, all the other situations, they weren't important. They weren't helping me. They weren't benefiting me, and I had to learn to separate that. I had to learn how to drop all that other stuff and focus on the things that were important to me and the things that were going to benefit me and the things that were going to help me grow into the man that I am today.
And that's hard to do. That's hard to be able to look at, especially when it comes to a lot of the off the field stuff. You look at the night before a game, everybody wants to go out and do something. It's hard to be able to look at your friends and be like, "Look, man, I ain't going. I got to get in bed. Got a big game tomorrow." You know, and a lot of people don't have that kind of discipline. Uh, you know, I, Coach Robbins had one of the best quotes that I've ever heard, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, I think it came from one of his former coaches, but it was, if you want to know what's important to somebody, find out what they spend their time and money on. And those are the two most valuable things that we have, right?
Mm-hmm.
With time and money. You can never, no matter who you are, you can't get time back, right? You
Nope.
can't turn the clock. And then we spend 4/5 of our life trying to earn money to be
Yeah.
able to enjoy a fifth of it. So hopefully you're doing something that you love along the way to be able to enjoy the whole ride. But
Yeah.
the but it's very true, and it goes. You look at within the college athletes, especially if you want to know how important the game of football is to somebody, then see how they're spending their time away from the field.
Mm-hmm.
How are they spending their time out of the weight room? Because you're going to the weight room, right? That's required. You're going to go to the field. That's required. But what are you doing on the non-required things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean that you can't go out and have a little fun, but it's all about picking and choosing. Is this the opportune time? Is this going to help me or hinder me in my goal, which is to be an absolute dominant beast on the field? And that's a lot easier to look back at once you get out of school and be like, man, I could have done more, or I wish I would have done more. But it's really hard when you're 19, 20, 21 years old, sitting in a room with other guys at your same age that are your boys, your brothers, like these are your dudes, and they're wanting to go do it. It's hard to be the one to stand up in there and be like, guys, we got a game tomorrow. We can't be
Mm-hmm.
going out to go do this tonight. We'll go celebrate after the game, but we can't go do this tonight. And I know North Greenville isn't perfect, and I know that it has a extremely high strenuous standard on things like that. But I'm also not oblivious to know that it didn't happen. But I do think that it helped. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it made it where you had to put in so much work to get around it
Yeah.
that it slowed you down a little bit, right?
I, I can say that 100%. Being a player and being, out of the NGU system for about a year and a half now. Even so, I ask you this as a former coach, you know, playing on the same side of the ball as me. You remember our first? You remember Valdosta State, number one at home, lost by 4.
2019
Mm-hmm.
homecoming.
Possibly one of the best games defensively all around that we have played in our entire stint at NGU.
4th and 2 on the 42-yard line, 42 seconds left in the game.
Yep.
Quarterback draw up the middle for a touchdown. Remember it well. Yeah, thanks for
Yep.
the memories.
I do too. Remember, it's still I was that play we lost them.
I remember what play we ran too. I mean, we ran
It,
weak brew. I
it,
mean,
that was Brew.
it was brew, and
Yep.
yeah, Chauncey got caught up by the center there, and Berger got the lead block on him, or Bogan was on the backside corner. Kind of took him a second to realize what was going on. He couldn't catch up to it. Our strong safety ran to the flat when he should be in the middle of the field. It was, oh, all right, yep. Sorry. Anyway, off track,
No,
distracted.
that's what happens. That's what happens. But the night before, we were out till 5 o'clock in the morning, Coach. I mean, that's just what happened. That's what happened. We were at Furman. We had a great time. Got back 5 o'clock in the morning. Got up for meetings. Got up for everything we need to get up for, and played probably arguably one of the best games of our lives. You know, and that type of stuff didn't happen often. I do remember a conversation because me and AWAT was involved in that too. Me and AWAT, we sat down, after a couple of days, and when we looked at each other, we were like, although that was probably one of the funnest 24-hour turnarounds we've ever had, and playing probably one of the best games of our lives. Ooh, the effort that was put in to have to do that, to be able to do that, just wasn't worth it.
Well, what happens if you get 3 more hours of sleep that night?
Not gonna lie, 3 more hours of sleep probably would have won that game.
You know what I'm saying? But it's those little things, because you guys got up for the moment, right? The moment lifted you to another level because of what was going on and because of what happened at Valdosta the previous year. We were the only the only team they didn't score 50 on all season, including the playoffs and the state or in the national championship. And they were fighting their tails off with the game in the bag, going forward on 4th down, trying to punch it into the end zone. I mean, that was our goal line stand at the end of that game as they were trying to punch it in the end zone. Was one of my proudest moments of us down there.
I still remember that. I still remember the string of plays that happened down there at that goal line, and we kept them out. I still remember.
And then the clock went off, and so we had a lot of things going into that game that we were able to build off of that really fired us up. But you kind of look at it from the other view. Yeah, coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning, you end up playing, as a collective unit, we end up playing one of the best games that we've ever put together on field. But what happens if that doesn't happen? If they don't go out, And so once again, like I said, it's just hard to be able to look at it, and it's a memory that you'll always have. And I'm not saying that it's both that memory of that night and the memory of that game will be etched in your mind.
Oh, it's
Um,
still no,
exactly right.
it's
And
not leaving.
and so there's a fine line there. But let's get back to your high school real quick. Tell us a little bit about how your high school career went, and what ended up leading you to get recruited to North Greenville, and a little bit about the recruiting process. When did you start getting looked at?
Okay, so going back into high school, good old North Myrtle Beach, home of the Chiefs. Oh man, I got to go back there and visit sometime. It's been a while, but going to high school, I wasn't honestly going into high school. My thought process, I wasn't the biggest, I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the most put together athlete. Of course, I love playing football. I wanted to play football. It wasn't until my it wasn't until my sophomore year that I really started to sprout. I really started to develop into um, a player that could contribute on both sides of the ball. I played defensive end and I played tackling guard my sophomore year in high school. It took one game on JV in my sophomore year. It took the first game for them to move me up to varsity that week. Um, I remember playing. I remember playing a phenomenal game against Loris at our home stadium, and absolutely obliterating them, taking them apart every single snap the entire game. I remember this so vividly. It was probably arguably one of the best games I've ever played in high school. Um, and I remember going back in the locker room, and Coach Hard looked at me and said, "You'll never play another game of JV again. From now on, this is where you belong. This is where you belong. This is where you should be." And I remember after that game, my very next game, I actually took the starting job of nose guard as a 205-pound sophomore in high school. I took the starting job from a senior. He was 6'5", I think he was like 280 at that point. Yeah, I took the starting job from a senior, and I I held that starting job the entire year after that. And the one thing Coach Mundy, who was my defensive line coach at the time, one thing Mundy always told me, or always told us, um, he doesn't care how big you are. He doesn't care how fast you are, how tall you are. The only thing that he cares about is, one, how fast can you come off the ball, and two, if you're going to give me every ounce of effort you can for in between those whistles every single snap of the game. Those are the things that he cared about. And if you could do that, you're going to start for him. And that's what I did, and that's why I started over that senior. That he was a 4-year starter before I came along, and he was benched after me. And after I took that, taking that season and being in that system and kind of developing every practice. I got better every week. Every week I got more comfortable in the system. Every week I was uh understanding more and more and more. I was building my IQ for the game. I was building the experience, taking the experiences and learning from them, and then um trying to flip that into knowledge and just using everything I could in that moment, because I wasn't as physically gifted as I am right now. I was nowhere near where I should have been playing in the position that I was playing nose guard at 200 pounds. That's not a good look. Like, I could come off the ball with the best of them, but I tell you, being that light at nose guard, facing doubles or triples, yeah, it's not fun. Uh, um, but going into my junior year, I think that is my junior year is when I started getting looks. I honestly think I got my first look from the Citadel. And I think I think it was Coach Yelding at that point, the defensive line coach over there. We talked on and off. I remember Coach Dukes sat me down because this is as he transitioned from being a football coach into just solely being a wrestling coach. I think he sat me down and he was like, "How would you feel about getting recruited by my alumni?" And I looked down. I was like, who's your alumni?" And that was the first time I ever heard of North Greenville University. And him and Coach Dukes and Coach Farrington are still really good friends to this day. They still keep in contact. Still really close.
And for those of you that don't know, Carl Dukes is a NGU linebacker legend.
That part.
I mean, he is all of 5'8" and just an absolute bowling ball of pure muscle and testosterone, and was
I
playing.
giving him too much for 5'8". Don't yeah.
he's wearing cleats on concrete. It's a
Oh man.
but an absolute NGU legend back there. I mean, he was a nose guard playing middle linebacker because he was fast enough to be able to do it. But anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, you're complete.
So is that where you met? So then did he introduce you then to Coach Farrington and Coach Novotosky?
He didn't introduce me. I think he asked me if I would be. He asked me if I would be comfortable attending Christian college, and I didn't see a problem with it. I didn't see any type of issue. I'm going to play football and I'm going to get education. Those two things that I was really worried about. Those two things that I was focused on. Where can I get the best bang for my buck while playing football and getting education? What was the best deal for me? And North Greenville offered, I think North Greenville offered the best deal for me all around. Being a campus where it was God centered, it was God fearing. Learned a lot. Even though the chapels were very tedious and all the all the Bible work was very tedious, it was a great place to learn, fantastic place to learn. I learned a lot. I grew my faith unimaginably there. Going through many trials and tribulations at North Greenville, and being at North Greenville it does teach you to focus and keep your faith. It teaches you through those hard times who you need to depend on and who you can depend on. A lot of light is shed going to NGU, but he sat me down. He asked me if it was okay that North Greenville was a Christian college, and I said, yeah, that's fine. I'm completely fine with that. And I think a couple weeks later is when I got the follow from Coach Novo on Twitter, and that's what kicked everything off. I think me and Novo talked. We talked consistently. Of all the coaches that I have talked to through my recruiting process, Coach Novo was the one coach that always kept in contact consistently. Like, I think me and Coach Novo talked almost every single day. I'm talking like, and he followed me on Twitter in like June. I want to say June or July of my junior year. So 2016. No, 2017. No,
No, you graduated in 2018.
graduated in 2018. 2017.
So that means fall of 2017 was your senior season. Fall
Yep.
of 16 was your junior season.
Yep. He followed me fall of 2016. And I think we talked for an entire year before they showed up and offered me at during my senior season. But Even with that, when I took my visits, nowhere felt like home like North Greenville did. And, it took me a while. It took me a while because, every coming out of high school, every kid's dream is to go D1. That's the goal. And, I will say the only reason I didn't commit faster to NGU is because I wanted to wait to see if I could get that opportunity. But, that opportunity came in a different sport. So I didn't want to play that sport at the Division 1 level. And I took my opportunity with North Greenville, which is I think is the best thing that I could have done. And, you know, here we are. Here we are today. Wouldn't change a single thing about my journey, especially going to NGU. There's a lot of character build up in there. A lot of character build.
No, absolutely. It's funny. There's a lot of people that are kind of in that same boat where they've got a handful of D2 offers, but they want to go play D1, and so they're waiting out, hoping for a better one. And you were fortunate enough to be able to jump on board before it was too late. But sometimes a lot of these, like by the time that they're ready to face the facts and realize that if they want to play college ball and have a scholarship to go do it, then you got to take advantage of what you have in front of you. And some of them wait too late and to where the spots get filled because there's a limited amount of spots for what's going on. If I was taking 2D linemen, I'd have 5 offers out at a time. And I'm very conservative within that way of things. I'm not going to just throw out a ton of offers because I also wanted to make sure I never threw out non-committable offers.
Mm-hmm.
I was very much against that. So, but there's a lot of people out there that they're going to throw out ten offers for one spot. Knowing that the top 5 are all committable and the back half are not committable, but they're just trying to keep them locked in place, and that's their way of showing love. And I'm very much against it. Like you either offer or you don't offer, in
Yeah.
my mind. But what how many schools were you kind of flirting with there for a while versus how many ended up actually pulling the trigger on you?
Schools that were flirting with me. Oh man.
Because there's a lot that'll keep you in the back pocket, never actually pull the trigger.
Central kept me in their back pocket. Uh, Citadel put me in the back pocket. Furman kept me in the back pocket. Um, la la. Let's see. Limestone. I flirted with Limestone for a while. They ended up pulling the trigger. They pulled the trigger in 2 sports, football and wrestling. NC State, they pulled the trigger in wrestling. um, Lander, Lander was for wrestling. Lander was for wrestling. Um, Coker for wrestling.
Wrestling.
Um,
So how did that change things? While you're getting, you want to go play college football, but you're also getting all this interest from another sport. That had to be adding to the confusion of everything going on, adding to, a little bit of the anxiety that I'm sure, just knowing you that you were probably feeling trying to figure out what to do here. Um, how did that play into it?
so honestly, the only reason I did wrestling was the only reason I started wrestling was to keep in good shape for football. Because if you ask any football player, they're gonna ask you what is the best way to keep in shape for football season.
Sure.
It's either constantly stay in the gym or go wrestle.
It's wrestle, 100%. I'm 1,000% with you right there. It helps build balance, builds strength, builds, it keeps you competitive. And there's nothing like putting your hands on another man and then, like, forcing him to do something he doesn't want to do. And I know that sounds, a little
No, but
whatever. But
that is
exactly,
though.
you play when you're playing, especially in football, right? Especially when you're in the trenches, your
Yeah.
job is to dominate another individual from 6 inches away, to
Mm-hmm.
put hands on them and to force them to do something they don't want to do. All right. So you either have to do that better, like with more technique, or you have to be just a more of a physical specimen. But the higher you get up in levels, the less division there is in athleticism and strength and speed,
Hmm.
right? And so just learning how to control a body, so wrestling does two things. One, it teaches you how to control your body,
Yep.
and two, it teaches you how to control somebody else's body,
Hmm.
right? If you
Yep.
want to have full control over somebody else, pick somebody up over your head and gently place them on the mat.
Gently play. Oh my gosh.
If you want to, like, that's going to teach you how to have real control of somebody. Now,
Oh,
Now, then I also think there's also a lot to be heard, a lot to be said about going to do freestyle, where you're trying to slam somebody on the map without crushing your own face at the same time, because that's a
yeah,
whole nother thing.
whole, a whole different ball game. And believe me, I think the deepest I got into wrestling was wrestling a couple matches at Greco, and it wasn't my cup of tea, but it was something different to try. It was definitely a different experience, and I don't know if I do it again.
Wrestling without
But
your legs is tough. I mean, you have them there. For those of you who don't know about Greco, you have your legs there, obviously. It's not like you're just wrestling on your knees. But you can't use your legs to wrap around. You can't grab legs. Like, it's basically anything you touch is from the waist up.
mhm,
And it
that
does it makes it rather interesting. It almost looks like a sumo match, especially when you get those heavyweights in there.
yeah, I tell you, it was different style of it was different style of wrestling that I was not used to, and I don't think I'll ever do it again. But I'm glad I tried, have the experience in the back pocket. But definitely going through the recruiting process and me knowing that I only did wrestling just to keep in shape, but I was getting all the attention. I didn't start getting all the attention until around the time of the state championships. My junior season, my junior season. I was all state wrestler. I was a state placer. I was third. I was third in the state. Um, I placed third in state my junior year. Finished with a record of 20. It was 23-3 my junior year. Um, I really sprouted in wrestling my second year, my senior year, where I posted a record of 44-1, losing in the state championship, quadruple overtime. It was heartbreaker. I think I cried for a week after I lost that match. Like it was uncontrollable. I remember this vividly. Showing up to school the next day, walking up to my one of my old football coaches, and I just completely broke down in tears. Like I couldn't do it. Like I felt like I was a failure. but um but nah, I started getting the attention after my senior campaign, and that's when everything wrestling started coming in. I turned down wrestling. I turned down USA Wrestling for the state of South Carolina, representing South Carolina. It's not something I just didn't want to do. Um, I it made a lot of confusion, especially during the time of signing day, because I was getting a good bit of wrestling offers, and I had my football offers, but I got a whole lot of good wrestling offers that were good schools and places that would give me a great education as well. And I had to really sit down and make the decision of whether I wanted to wrestle or play football, or in that rare case, I could do both. Did I want to do both? Um, but I think in the end, I just nothing really just felt like home more than NGU, and that's why I went to NGU, and that's why I played football. That was my football is my original love. Um, I fell in love with NGU first before anything else, and I enjoyed that place. I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed the time that I had there and the fellowship that I had and all the bonds and relationships that I made going there. And some of those bonds will never be broken. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it is finding a place that feels like home. That was always one of the big things that I wanted to talk to recruits about because, even though when I was coaching, my job was to try to bring in the best players. I always wanted to make sure that I'd bring in players that lasted, and not somebody that felt like I'm doing this because my back's against the wall and I have no other options. Now, granted, that's how we got some players because they didn't have any other offers and we were their only one and they felt like their back was against the wall. But I was always really concerned about that because if you don't want to be here now, then there's a chance you don't want to be here later. I at least want those that want to be here now and stand a chance of being in the program for the entire time and being able to develop and us build something around it. But it it's a crucial part of falling in love with the school more so than the program. And I know when you were reminded once again that academics are more important than anything else by the school, and by Coach Farrington,
Mm.
that I remember that conversation we had of I'm not going anywhere. Even if I don't ever get to play football again, this is where I'm going to graduate from. And I think that is a huge part for people to understand when they go into playing college sports. That sure, yeah, you could transfer and go do something else, but there's still a lot of things that go into transferring that a lot of people don't talk about. First and foremost, you're going into a completely new environment where a lot of times you don't know anybody. I mean, you're starting a brand new school, so you're having to start over on your socialization and trying to build up your community. You're trying to build back up your support network. You're trying to get readjusted to a new way of life, a new campus, a new place, and a new people. And you're having to deal with whether your classes are transferring over and any that you may end up repeating. And a lot of people don't talk about that kind of stuff because they only have one thing on the mind, and that's ball. And I'm going to go pro, so who cares if I have a degree? And it ends up hurting a lot of people. But when you can truly find a place that's special, even if football's taken away, whether it's injury or academics or life, whatever it may be. I mean, I've lost count of how many people I've seen have to walk away from football because they found out they were going to have a baby. And, to them, going to go get a job, they wanted to stay in school, but going to go get a job was more valuable to them than playing ball. And much respect to those for having their priorities right. Some people are fortunate enough to be able to do both. They have
Hmm.
the support system to be able to do both, and props to them for that. But they're also fortunate,
Yeah.
and so always being able to find that place that is home and feels like home and is a place that you want to be is absolutely critical when it comes down to picking a school. I think that's huge.
Hmm.
So you pick North Greenville, right? You commit, you end up signing on signing day at the school, right? Did a little signing day ceremony,
Yep.
right? And then we met in May for the
Yeah, I
first
was.
time. I took the job in March. Um, Novo moved into the weight room. I took the D-line job. We had that first conversation out there. I was still trying to learn and figure everything out. And actually, we had a conversation as coaches about another guy that we had signed. We had signed 3 D linemen in that class.
Hmm.
One from Spartanburg, one from Carver's Bay, and then you from North Myrtle. And
Oh.
we had one conversation as coaches going into it about the kid from Spartanburg and from you, and about how there were talks about possibly moving one to O line. And for some reason, I had your name in my mind, but it was the one from Spartanburg. And so I remember we went and we got to talking, and I mentioned something about the offensive line, and you just like, I don't know if I'm coming anymore.
Yeah, I was. Oh man, I wasn't. I was not playing about that. I did not want to end up on the O line in college. I want to do it. That's not where I wanted. Not what we talked. It wasn't what we talked about.
What we talked about, and obviously, didn't. You came in as a D lineman, got a good little bit of playing time as a freshman. Um, I have your freshman stats pulled up here.
Oh God.
You remember what your best game was? You should.
Uh,
You should.
my best game was West Al.
West Al, you had 2 sacks in that game,
Hmm.
and it's also the most sacks that you ever had in a game as your time
I
at
mean,
North Greenville.
yeah,
Um,
but
my grading was different than their grading,
yeah,
but
we.
um, but yeah, had a really good season. Kind of started off slow, kind of working your way in, and then West Al I think was kind of your breakout game that first year. We got smacked by West Georgia the very next game. He didn't really have any stats, but you did smack that quarterback one good time. I remember that still in my coaching highlight tape of that I used for clinic stuff.
and
Uh,
that and I put out the who was that
the
guard?
guard, yeah, the guard that pulled around. You guys just like, well, pow. You even told me before that series went out. You were just like, man, this guy keeps talking crap. I'm just gonna go out. I'm just gonna hit him as hard as I can. And I'm like, bet, go friggin' hit him. I was not expecting you to go friggin' like headbutt him as he was pulling around and try to like. I mean, that dude, his knees crumbled like friggin'
He could.
burnt bacon. I
He,
mean, just. He did not want to play football anymore after that. That was a smacking. But I want to talk a little bit about your time on the field and kind of you had a lot of ups and downs. I mean, your entire college was a roller coaster in many ways, and I want to talk about the on the field stuff before we talk a little bit about the off the field stuff, and we can dive into that as much as you want to, and leave it alone as much as you want to as well. But I think there was a very real connection between your off the field mental health and your on the field performance, right?
yeah,
And so when you were at your best off the field, you were at your best on the field. And I don't think that's a conversation that gets talked enough about
I
with
don't either.
right with athletes in general because as athletes, as men, as people in a physical sport, right? We're told to the old saying rub some dirt on it and get over, right?
Hmm.
Move on, who cares? Kind of deal.
Right.
And I think oftentimes we may need to hear that from a physical standpoint. The difference between being hurt and being injured. Sometimes you're hurt and you just need to suck it up and move on because what do you want to do? Not play? But it's not that simple when it comes to the mental aspect of it. And I think we are taught at young ages not to ask for help with things like that. So, from an on the field standpoint, let's talk a little bit about how you felt after your freshman year, how that translated into your sophomore year, a little bit of, because I think your strongest seasons were your freshman and your senior seasons.
Hmm.
You know,
Uh, I think from translation from in my freshman and senior seasons, I think I was more focused on doing things the right way. I was a lot more focused on trying to be the person that helped our defense, that helped our team, rather than being, so rather than trying to be the sole person to just make the plays. Um, I think that my freshman and senior seasons, I was a lot more technically sound. Um, I think I think I was able to slow the game down more in my mind as a freshman and a senior than I was in between. I think in between those seasons, everything kind of moved really fast for me, but that was also because my focus was in the wrong places. Um, I think it wasn't until I took a step back from it and, kind of just took a breath. I was able to do that my freshman year, my sophomore, not sophomore, freshman and senior year. I was able to take a step back and just, kind of recollect and then bring myself back and was able to perform.
And I think it's important to also note that your sophomore and freshman year were split with COVID in the middle of it.
Mhm.
Because your sophomore year was the fall of 19. We had COVID. We didn't play a season in 20. Then your junior year was the fall of 21. So this isn't just a 2 year gap. This is 3 years of a lot of things going on in your life in a lot of different areas
Mm.
and a lot of different things that are all happening at once, including what's going on with the world as a whole. How are you able to, after that time, go into your senior year and be able to finally see everything that was happening and be able to take a step back and take a breath and be able to come into it rejuvenated?
Well, I think one of our conversations at the end of my junior campaign, when the all conference list came out, I know you remember that very well because I remember very well.
Kid from Shorter got on it. You didn't.
I remember our conversation, and I remember where I had this conversation. I had this conversation outside of my ex girlfriend's mom's house. I was walking up the driveway, pacing because I was livid about the whole list. I was livid about it. And I remember calling you, and if I'm not mistaken, your exact words were, "You need to work harder." I'm pretty sure those were your exact words, and I think that stuck with me all year. That stuck with me all season, all training camp, all year, every practice, every weight room session. I think that stuck with me. That drove me to be able to not only do what I had to do on the field, but also when I needed to take a step back and recollect myself and refocus on what I needed to focus on, and focus on those things that were important and drop the things that weren't. Because don't get me wrong, there was things and situations that happened my senior year where I did have to step back and I kind of just had to recollect, refocus, and regroup. Get myself together and put myself back on the right track. There was times where I strayed off, but for the most part, I was able to get right back on track and focus on what I need to focus on and get my business done. Um, but I think just being able to do that um showed a lot because I after that year I did become an all conference performer. Um and I was happy with myself at the end of my senior year. I felt like I did feel like I proved myself in that year. If I didn't do anything, I think I feel like I proved myself in that year.
And it showed in the accolades that you received from it. It's it's one thing to be able to want to do something and to see what it is that you want to do. It's another to be able to actually perform and to execute. And it seems like you happen to find a mantra to kind of live by and to constantly remind yourself. And I think that's absolutely huge. A lot of people talk about different things like different quotes or different sayings. You put it on a sticky note and stick it up in your bathroom mirror. I
Mm.
often think about Gyros, now the safeties coach at Kennesaw State, when he was a GA at North Greenville. Back in his closet office, he took little 5x7 index cards and wrote things that he always wanted to remember and stuck it right there behind, so that way on the wall he was looking at it every single day. And different things like that, I think, are a huge way to help remind ourselves what we're doing this for and how we should do it. Um, I read this book here recently, and they were talking about everybody has a dream of who they want to be, right? Everybody has this idea of who we want to be, but we keep it big picture, and that's where we fail.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of just looking at who you want to be, take that to start with. Say, this is who I want to be. This is who I aspire to be. This is who I should be in my own mind. And then write down the things that makes that person them, right? And then focus on those things. Right? It's the same deal as I don't know if you've read the book Atomic Habits, but it's an absolutely phenomenal book. It's one of the best quote unquote self books out right now. But it's this idea of I have a goal of losing 30 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that's my goal, I'm not really moving forward to do anything to achieve it because of my goal, right? Like the goal is too massive, it's too broad to be able to help. But when I'm able to break it down and say, I want to go to the gym 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I want those workouts to be at least 30 minutes. I want to make sure that I'm tracking my meals. Or, I want to make sure that I am in a calorie deficit at least 5 days a week. Those are micro habits that we form that each individual goal contributes to the overall goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially when we're looking at something big and wanting to make a big change, you going from your junior year to your senior year, it's one thing to look at it and be like, I need to be better, I want to be better. But then when you're able to break it down, and I know we talked about this a little bit, you started having goals in the weight room, you started having goals on the practice field, you started having goals in the classroom, and you started having goals on game day. And it was the compilation of all of those that came together, I think, to give you the senior season that you did,
Mm-hmm.
opposed to just the overall, I want to be better, right? You had all these individual goals in these individual areas that all combined into one, um, that kind of went through that. And speaking on that, talk a little bit about your weight room records while we're on it. All right.
Oh man.
So tell the people here bench press record, school record, position record. Might as well be a conference record. I don't know, man. The conference just beat it. What'd you get on a one rep bench?
One rep bench, 475 pounds.
475 pounds. And guess what, guys? He didn't even bounce it off his chest. He suicide grip, which made me want to friggin' just, lose my mind every single time because, it makes
You
me more powerful,
oh,
coach. Like, man, I'm just
okay.
waiting for that thing to slip out. At least, like, I know your thumbs can't hold that if it were to fall, but at least gives me a little bit more confidence.
Yeah.
Like, that thing just, whoop, man. I was,
It
uh,
sat and it moved.
it didn't move. Well, that's a lot of weight to try not to move. I was also scarred from my junior year in high school. We did a weightlifting competition with
Mhm.
two other schools in our region, and I was spotting the kid that ended up getting sixth in our weight class because it was two kids from each school in each weight class, and he was doing 265, right? And I was just doing a one rep max of 265. And he came up and just like got about halfway and then just straight up let go of the bar. And I'm spotting him. I mean, it like bounced off his rib cage like a trampoline, and then I caught it right there, and then was able to kind of get it racked with a little bit of help. But I was scarred since then because I got chewed out for letting this bar fall on this guy, and I'm like, it's 265 pounds. Like that's like if I fell on him from 2 feet up in the air, and you're just like, why didn't you stop him? Like,
You're just not.
like, what do you mean? What did I stop him? Why did he let go of the bar? Like, I'm here to keep him from getting crushed, not keeping him being an idiot. Like, God,
Oh man.
yeah, your suicide grip killed me. Anyway, so then, all right, you get this record, and then you're absolute stiff as a board with your little chicken calf legs. Turn around. and break the school record for squat. And not only did you do it once, you had to do it twice, 3 times. And what was your final squat record that you had?
700.
So you got the 700. I remember you tried the 725. Thought you might have came close to it, and just a little too smoked, a little too gassed at that point. But 700, so 475 bench, 700 squat. Um, very impressive. Very impressive. Um, so anyway, you kind of to kind of dig your way out of a little bit of a hole, and from a mental aspect, you kind of held on to a little mantra, work harder, work harder, work harder, reminding yourself of what was important. Was there anything else that you found helpful in those times?
Um, Honestly, I had a great support system behind me. You know, anytime I ever need anything, anytime that I need to talk or anything, there's there was two people I always went to. Two people. It was either my dad, or it was you. You two were probably, and I'm not, you two were probably a large influence on my senior season in just being able to be there and give me advice and help me through certain things. Um, Honestly, you two are probably almost one and the same with how you give advice. You both, it was like talking to the same person. Any time I talk to one of you, you just sound like the other. It was just you guys were the same. Um, but not as much as driving force, but I say more of a more of a guide, more of a helping hand. Being able to get advice from two people with many life experiences and so much to learn from and a lot of advice to give. Um, just having y'all two in my corner kind of just helped me. It helped me grow. It helped me grow. It helped me blossom. And um, I think that besides that, I mean, there wasn't really too much else.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, we definitely all need a support system, and people that we can talk to that can both listen, understand, and push us to be better at the same time. And for those of us fortunate enough to have those people in our lives, it can definitely make the world a difference. And I feel honored that you consider me one of those people. Uh, I know we have probably given each other more headaches than headaches can be given. Um, but I also know that all of those headaches at the end of the day have always come from a place of love and um, wanting to be our best that we can
Yeah.
be. So kind of want to, I know we got to wrap up here and just kind of want to ask you the final question. If you're talking to a kid right now in high school who's trying to figure out what to do with his life, he wants to go play college ball. Maybe he has a couple small D2 or a couple D2 offers. Maybe he has a couple NAI offers, or maybe he's got 15 D1 offers. What's the advice that you're giving him?
The advice that I'll give to any person in high school right now, first of all, don't even, I know it's very tempting and it's very hard not to, but don't look at the division. Don't look at D1, D2, D3, NAIA. Don't look at that stuff. The one thing as a high schooler you need to focus on is finishing out your high school career. Finish out those last 2, 3 games. Finish out in the classroom. Finish out in the classroom. I cannot stress that enough. If you don't finish out in the classroom, nothing else matters. You can't get to college without having that GPA to get into college. You can't get into college without having those test scores to get into the college that you want to get into. So if you don't finish out high school, there's no college for you. Um, As far as looking at, different divisions, you don't want to look at that. You want to look at where do you feel at home? Where do you fit? Where do you fit in the best at? Of course, you want to have a good relationship with your coach. That doesn't always happen. I was blessed to have to be given the opportunity to have coaches that actually care about my well-being and care about my success as a person and my growth as a man going through college. I was blessed to have those people that were also my coaches. Um, you know, you don't get that often. It's rare that you get that opportunity to have those people. That's those same people that recruit you. Those same people that are your coaches that'll push you to be the best version of you on and off the field that you can be. You want to find that place that makes you feel at home. So take those visits. Take the chances on those smaller schools, those D2s, D3s. Um, it's all glitz and glamour up there at D1, but I promise you, the D2s and D3s will take care of you just as well. They will take care of you. They will care for you. They will help you. They will do everything they can for you. You know, Being a person coming from D2, we might not have everything a D1 has. We might not have all the glitz and glamour, but I tell you this, we have people who care. We have people who will do everything they can to help you. We have people that will care for you in any type of situation that you go through, and people that'll be there for you. Lifelong bonds will be made wherever you go, but you want to find that place that reminds you of home. This was my home away from home. I was very comfortable here. I created some of the best bonds of my life going to NGU, and there that's something you can't. That's something you just don't find everywhere.
It's very true. And I do have one more question I do want to ask you because I do think it's important. Talking, if you were to talk with an athlete who dealt with some of the things that you dealt with there in the middle of your collegiate career and having to deal with the ups and downs and everything that kind of went into that, and you find yourself in a rather dark emotional place. What are some advice that you have for those guys that are trying to deal with that right now on their own?
My advice, my advice to you is the storm does not last forever. Eventually, the storm will end. You just, and I say this with a grain of salt. You have to find it within yourself to ride out the storm. It's not going to last forever. No storm lasts forever. It goes on forever. It feels like that, and it goes on for a while. I've been in that place where it goes on for a long time, and it just doesn't feel like you're digging yourself out of it. It doesn't feel like you're coming out of it at all. But eventually that storm will end. This too shall pass. You know, Everything has a due date. That storm has a due date. I promise you, your time is coming. All you have to do is keep your head down and just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. Do not stay stagnant. The worst thing you can do during a storm is stay stagnant, because then you get in the headspace that you're not going anywhere. You don't feel yourself going anywhere, and it expands so quickly and so bad. Just keep moving forward is my best advice.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Kwame, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you being here today. Once again, this is brought to you by Volz Athletics for all of your recruiting and training needs. You can catch us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, and Amazon Music, and then watch the video on YouTube. Kwame, thank you, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, coach.